I'm Kendall, the owner of Mechanical Advantage Racing. This is my Subaru Impreza GC, or technically in the US, the GM chassis that I built into a track mod time attack car. And we're out here running it at Lime Rock Park for the first ever Gridlife event they've hosted here. Go ahead and give you a walkthrough of the car since this is kind of a wonky setup altogether. The first thing you'll notice is twin turbos, which is rarely, if ever, seen on a Subaru, and that was kind of intentional. When the car was built, at least with this iteration, I wanted to do something very different. And seeing what Ken Block did basically to duplicate that kind of Hoonigan mentality that they did with Ken Block's Hoonicorn Ford. So I was able to put twin Garrett G25 660s, and this is somewhat the second iteration from a turbo standpoint. We originally had the G25 550s, but I was able to upgrade to the bigger version and roughly have the same spool and make extra power. So that's been a pretty nice upgrade. In addition to the Garrett turbos, we also have their new GVW wastegates. These are the GVW 40s. Now we're actually hitting our target boost, which is kind of insanity, especially for a Subaru. When this is in kill mode, we'll have it up at 41 PSI, which is, I've never actually got it there on the dyno now that we have the new wastegates, but at 36 PSI, it was 770 wheel horsepower. So my guess is 850 at the wheels in full kill mode. What's also kind of cool with this setup, you'd think it would be stupid laggy. And though it definitely is laggy, it'll hit full boost by 6,000 RPM, which considering the turbo size and the engine size, it's pretty decent. As for the engine, also kind of a bizarre setup. It's a 2.3 liter, and to make this engine a 2.3 liter, I used basically the 2005 STI engine platform. So the single AVCS engine with a 2.5 liter block, but I did longer connecting rods and the WRX 75 millimeter crankshaft. So that'll bring the displacement down, change the rod angles, and just make it a little less harsh from a torque standpoint. It's a B5S4 twin turbo intercooler. So this was meant for like a 2000 Audi S4. And you know, my brother being into those cars, I was very familiar with this setup, and these have become so cheap. So to incorporate this twin turbo setup, I needed some sort of either Y pipe to Y the turbos together pre-single intercooler, or Y them together after they go through their individual. So it's one core but divided with two end tanks, so the turbos are feeding opposite directions across this and then Ying together to come to the main intercooler pipe and go in the engine. Well, before we move on, you can probably see we've had some battle wounds, actually from one of the most freak accidents, I'm guessing maybe assembly error on my part. But at a couple events ago, we had the oil line that feeds this turbo actually break at the fitting here and launched away and started burning, where you can see all the white on this turbine housing, and almost engulfed the whole car, which was one of the scariest things I've had happen. But luckily, in that process, really nothing got hurt other than a few wires that we had to fix, and still need to go through a few more of them for radiator fans. But I guess that's a note. Always have your fire extinguisher in the car, because without that, this thing for sure would have burned to the ground. And for front aero, we've got a lot going on here. Like most time attack cars, we've got your front canards or dive planes, which are pretty basic. I'm just trying to make some high pressure to force the front down. And then a big front splitter. And what's kind of neat is, as with hopefully most sports at least, I know in our sport, there's a lot of camaraderie between different drivers. And this is a splitter built by Chris Boersma, used on James Houghton's car, and then ultimately made its way to my car. So just a lot of hands on this, and they're here at the event. We're competing directly with them this weekend with parts that they made, which is, I don't know, it's fun to me to know that you can compete yet still be friendly and help each other compete. We want to beat each other at our best, I guess. And to really get this car gripping to the ground, I'm currently on the Nankang CR1 street tires. These are the 265s. I do have some other similar tires, the Falcons and some AO52s. I really wanted to see on this, they're very similar to the street modified class tire, spec tire size. And I wanted to see what this car does compared to them, because ultimately with some extra aero, I should run faster. If I'm not, we have more work to do. And in the past, I've run slicks, and that really artificially gets you faster without showing the full potential in the car. And the tires are mounted on the Koenig freeforms, and this has also been a pretty critical part of the car. You want to have your unsprung weights as light as you can, and there's a lot of ways to do this. But what we had before was pretty terrible. I was running essentially a knockoff cast wheel that was extremely heavy. And your next step is something along the lines of these, where you have a free-formed wheel that can cut some significant weight, which will just help you dial in your suspension settings and get the car to grip. And this worked out really well for me because they don't break the bank by any means. They're almost right there on par with some of these in price. You're paying marginally more than some of these cast wheel manufacturers, and your next step, if you want to cut weight, is to go to, you know, some forged or billet wheel, which you are going to be spending an outrageous amount. We've been running Koenig wheels for 4 seasons, I believe it is now, and they've just been awesome. Behind them, we've got our brake kit, which is one that we designed in-house. We've got it on Grant's car, my car. There's a few other cars in Time Attack that are running them as well. So 6-piston up front, 4-piston in the rear, adjustable bias in the car. This whole setup between the tire, the wheel, the suspension, which I haven't mentioned, the Fortune Auto Dreadnought Pro 2-ways, has just made this car stickier than it is almost incomprehensible. In the rear, we've got the big wing. These are actually both Grant and I on Grant's Miata. We built these wings. I modeled this whole setup myself in CAD, and we wanted to see, you know, in the spirit of Time Attack, can we build our own wings? So I found you can actually look up wing profiles online and, you know, extrude them across, figure out the spacing we need, model the uprights, model the end plates. All right, so here's the cockpit. We're a little messy right now. We've added quite a few things in the last event. So the first money piece is the sequential here. And we've got some yellow lines. Some of them are missing right now. I had to rob it for my water sprayer after the fire. We needed hose, so some came back out, but there's some cool stuff going on here. We'll see once this charges up. There's an air solenoid underneath the shifter that these hoses run to, and when connected and properly plumbed, it'll shift the lever forward or back, so I can run this car fully paddle shift. Some other cool stuff, we added this Roadkeeper camera, which is pretty cool. As I turn the car on, it starts recording all my track sessions. I got a camera on me and a camera looking forward at what I'm looking at. We added a comms unit, so in my helmet I can plug in and communicate with Mary and see you know, what are my actual recorded times versus my lap timer. Some other neat stuff over here. Our furthest one on the right actually controls turbo oil sump pumps, which we've got mounted to the chassis, and we are pulling oil from the valve covers and returning it back to the oil pan. Subaru's being a flat engine, when you turn really sharp, it likes to slosh oil and you don't have anything in the pan, it starves of oil and then you kill your engine. So unless you go dry sump, you're gonna have that happen when you're trying to push you know, high loaded corners. So that was our solution, and it's worked very well since we implemented that. We've got both the engine and our display are the performance, or the engine control unit and display are the performance electronics units, and these have been really nice. That control unit can also control the paddle shift. So I'm sending all these signals here off of the steering wheel or off of the lever itself, which has a strain gauge. So if you see the throttle here, I don't know if you can get a shot of that. When you push forward, it actually puts about 30% throttle in, so I can electronically throttle blip this car to try and get some automation going. Likewise, on my upshift, or in this case pulling back, it'll kill the engine, so it's a torque reduction when you're upshifting to try and rev match that way. And yeah, this is the car that we were able to come and build for this season, and we're battling, hopefully by the end of today, to maybe get in the second place for points in the Gridlife season. Got a lot of great sponsors. I couldn't have done this without Callie's helping us out on engine internals, IAG helping machine a block that can handle this power. Of course, we have Koenig that's given us wheels that helps just get all this power to the ground, and Fortune coilovers being able to help us with a suspension package that can just handle and be valved properly for what we have built and the amount of downforce. Performance Electronics for their engine control unit, as well as X-Shift and their transmissions, their sequentials. There's just countless companies that have helped on this car to make it what it is, as well as my girlfriend Mary, who's there every night trying to help me get this car just together so we can make it to the event, which is its own nightmare usually, and maintaining it when we're at the track. You know, it takes a whole team. And thanks again for taking this tour of my 2000 Subaru Impreza RS. My Instagram handle is mechanical_advantage_racing.